Hi, Monica McGillicuddy here. Thought I would take a few moments and go over the required New Hampshire Real Estate Commission brokerage relationship disclosure form. The important thing about this form is that it is not a contract, and it says this right up front. This form is basically something that a real estate professional is required to go over with the consumer at their first business meeting. And that means that the agent has to explain who they represent or don't represent in the transaction before they start asking deep, probing questions. Those types of questions are really off limits. Unless you're in a contractual relationship. But this form is the first document that you're going to get from a real estate professional. And as I said, it's not a contract. It says it right up here, it's not a contract, but basically it's a disclosure form. And in the beginning, you're a customer and you need to enter into a buyer agency or a seller agency relationship to become a client. And there's a lot to understand the difference between customer and client. But for the purposes of this form, when you first meet an agent, understand that until you upgrade to a contractual relationship, you are a customer. Therefore, the agent that you're working with, depending on the type of the firm they work with and the type of agency they practice, is either going to not represent anyone in the transaction, be what we call a facilitator, or if you're working with someone from a traditional firm, they may all in that company represent the seller. So it's important to understand what type of relationship that agent can offer you, and this form is going to do this. So in the beginning, everyone's a customer, and they can choose to upgrade to a client level services if they want, and then they get confidentiality, loyalty, disclosure, lawful obedience, and pretty well just put your best interest ahead of anything else. In a customer level relationship, the agent has an obligation to disclose all material defects. Anything that agent knows, has to treat you honestly and give you good care. However, you're not a client, and so you cannot expect confidentiality and them to put your needs first. So this document, very simple. You would basically sign it as a consumer. The licensee who's giving it to you will all sign it and date it, and it basically says that that person has gone ahead and given the appropriate disclosure. There's 2 pages to this. The second page is actually going to give you the description of the different agency options that they have when they're working with you. So as I said earlier, if the type of firm that the agent is working with is a traditional firm, then the important thing to know is that if you enter into a buyer agency agreement with that agent and you want to look at anything that's listed with that firm, you'd be what they call a dual agent. If you work with someone who is in a designated agency firm, and that description's right down here, that means that agent will be designated to represent you no matter whether you're looking at a listing that's listed with that firm or not. They would represent you as a designated agency. The only time dual agency could happen in that situation is if you were looking at a listing that that agent already has. So while it may sound complex, it really is basically simple. Make sure you read this form, make sure you feel comfortable with it, and you know what, if you're working with an agent that's asking you to sign this form, you should feel really good about that, because this is required. It's not a contract, but it is required at the time right here of first business meeting before you discuss anything that could be considered confidential. So if you've been looking in the state of New Hampshire and you haven't seen this form, I'd be a little worried, and I certainly would question that. Got any questions? Give us a call. Jay and Monica McGillicuddy, 603-548-7728. Have a good one.